Welcome back to Weebology, everybody. I am your basement-dwelling Professor Ricky.
Sup, Choombuzz? I'm your Professor Ethan.
Chooms.
There's a 99% chance that I will at some point accidentally slip into an Australian accent because I'm listening to an audiobook with an Australian narrator about an Australian main character.
So you're just getting it pumped into your brain 24/7.
Sweet as.
There it is.
Struth. Apparently that's a good one that I really like now.
Which one is that?
Struth.
Struth?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Do you have a context for that?
I don't know.
Oh, you don't even know yet?
I think it's just truth with an S on it.
Yeah, it's truth. It's truth.
We got to ask our boy Philip next time we chat.
We do. But yes, it's official. I've moved into the lab.
Woo!
And I am now living in the basement of the lab. And Jeezy Pete, there are some there's some dark things down there.
Some demons.
A couple isekai heroes that reverse isekai here that we keep to interrogate about other worlds.
Right.
We have
you have to.
We have a resident 300-year-old loli who comes from time to time to like give us the insight on the loli crowd, which today we might actually need because Twitter seems to be fucking insane about one as we speak. But there's some
the
some
loli
crazy...
stays in his room. I've never seen a loli here.
She's not in my room. We keep her in the storage by the garage.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, next to the other isekai heroes and a couple, tertiary sidekicks.
You weren't gonna get me on that one, bitch.
I wasn't gonna get you there, but neither were you gonna get me there. But
touche, well played.
Thank you, appreciate it. But there's a lot of crazy tech down there. And speaking of crazy tech,
nice.
Today we were talking about, I think, a show that I don't know if it took everyone by surprise, but it definitely was like left turn in terms of quality, grabbing the anime community, and in my mind could stand the test of time as one of the best game-centric shows. Couple that come to mind, Rage Bahamut, Castlevania, but this one might take the cake as the best game-centric anime we're going to be graced with thus far. So Ethan, what are we talking about today?
Today, Chooms, we're talking about Cyberpunk Edgerunners.
Yes, the 2022 CD Projekt Red sponsored and produced but animated by Studio Trigger show that I really think kind of exemplifies why the Cyberpunk 2077, the game, really has a beautiful world on its hand in its dystopian, like bleak, technologically cloaked setting. And if people don't know out there, Cyberpunk 2077, you and I probably between us 65, 70 hours, you'd say.
Yeah.
And how would you feel that launch went for that game?
So initially pretty rough.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's tough because it was so ambitious, and I think the show actually sheds a really good light on the game.
Yes.
Because having played like 40-ish hours, whatever, like I was like, oh, I've been there. It was like pure nostalgia. And I got to be honest, guys, I was so hyped for this game before it came out. Like,
same.
Like, while not in real life, but in my like, fantasy world, like the grungy kind of like, I don't know, just like that kind of nasty feeling that Night City has.
It
like
speaks to everything I like.
It's such an aesthetic.
The tech, the grunge, the grittiness, the highest of highs, the lowest of lows that a city like Night City could offer.
Right. But of course, like in real life, I would want absolutely nothing to do with any of the things that you see in the show.
Oh no, I'd be in the Outlands for sure. I'd be living out as a nomad in the middle of nowhere.
I'd just be the no tech guy because some of them get a little too fucking wild, and you see that in this show. But basically, the game, it had a really tough launch because for a few things, but mostly, like I said, it was really ambitious tech-wise, and like unless you had like a really decent PC, it was like bricking PS4s, and like it would make like the graphics were just horrific on anything that wasn't PC.
Yeah.
And so it came to, have some ire directed toward it. I myself have been stuck in certain missions for like hours.
Because there's mission breaking bugs in that shit.
There's that. And then there's just like, I clipped through a wall once and I was just stuck in between an elevator and the wall. And I was just like, well.
And that's the thing, right? Is it trying to be all things to all people on all systems? And that was really a big part of its downfall. So I I got a way better laptop than I use nowadays as my main creative and gaming thing, and this thing can crank it out on high, and I would say it locks at 60. But to Ethan's point, it's a game that you could really only fully enjoy if, almost ironically, if you didn't have tech almost akin to this world's tech, you were not enjoying this technological dystopia.
That's actually hilarious.
That's how it is, right? So despite...
But so like the origins actually come from like a D&D role-playing type game.
Okay.
Yeah, so Cyberpunk originally was a tabletop role-playing game, which actually, before the game came out, I was going to get you, me, and Patrick and some others to play.
Oh, sick.
Because there's like a packet or whatever you can play. But then I was like, I don't want to like, spoil it for us. You know what I mean? Like the like, ooh, street kid, ooh, corpo. You know what I mean?
Nomad. So I
didn't want to like blow our load too early. And then I obviously like 2077 is like a reimagining / a like a growth on that original. Like
the bones that was the tabletop game.
Yeah, the RPG thing.
Yeah.
And so like the game is like super open world. It's very like you can play multiple different paths. I think they all sort of path toward the same thing though.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of leaning, because like I started as street kid and I started leaning towards corpo. Like and you could basically, like, the way you start kind of gives you avenues toward different paths towards those major story beats. But overall, I mean, I think after watching this show, might fire that sucker back up again. It got me jazzed.
It does like get you kind of amped to get back into it. There's a couple weird things about the game. Like for some reason, like I play a lot of FPSs and I feel like the gunplay is really whack.
It's really floaty. It's kind of it's odd. It's not
imprecise.
Tight.
There's like also 0, I think, probably aim assist.
No, there isn't.
Like,
you on your own.
I play in controller.
Yeah,
and it's just like horrible. And everyone who has watched me stream it on the Weebology YouTube channel will know that I also can't drive in that game for some reason.
See, I'm a good driver. I'm not
I
the
drive
best
in
shooter.
every other game just fine. I literally, maybe it's the like, like when you push the stick to the left, there's like the acceleration,
right?
Like dead zone acceleration or something like that.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe I just need to change the settings and then I'd be able to drive like no problem.
I did have to tweak a bunch of controller settings for myself to make it my thing.
Like, I mean, just I'm sorry for anyone that had to watch me try to drive in that game with my Bugatti I found in the wilderness. But yeah, so anyway, really solid game, bad launch, bad bugs, but just like an insanely, I think, immersive world.
Yes, and I wanted to say that for the show's sake, I think before we get into its quality story and all that, I think it did what any game anime sets out to really do, maybe with the caveat of Castlevania, is that it's going to want to make you play the game. And ultimately, I think it achieves that goal. So, I mean, if you have played Cyberpunk and put it down, or never had and kind of waited for all of like the cracks to get smoothed out with patches, now is your time to watch it if you're even not a big anime fan, or you're just getting into anime in general. Asterisk on that one, and I'll tell you why in a bit. But this show will get you to want to play the game. And it does it very organically because it's very much not kind of selling you on the game mechanics all the time. But again, it, like Ethan said, it uses the exact locations. It uses a lot of the same AI and UI in the game.
Unbelievably well done.
Incredibly well done. Maps, conversations. It's not like text bubbles you see in some bullshit shows. No, it's like they show on screen as your subtitles. If you watch in sub like me, the subtitles went away. And you're reading the conversation as it stands. Wow,
that's incredible.
Yes. So you're basically locked into... There is a nice interplay between the audience and the way that the characters interact with their tech. You are forced in a way to interact with the tech the same way they do, which is really rather clever. And I give CD Projekt Red credit for that, because I imagine a lot of the creative choices came from like utilizing the game mechanics itself into the show. I think CD Projekt Red had everything to do with that. So kudos on them for that. But I guess enough about the game. We got to talk about this show, because God, I did not see this coming in any respect. I thought it was going to be good. Studio Trigger is going to have a fun time with it. I know they home grow their stuff and they're very picky about what they do. You know, they do Kill la Kill, Little Witch Academia, BNA, and a lot of those are homegrown.
I will say infinitely better than BNA.
Yes, infinitely better.
I think, you know, the style of BNA, like, I guess it fit it, but this is like a match made in freaking heaven.
Yes.
They honestly fit the aesthetic. It's not as like, so like when you play the game like on ultra settings or whatever, like you see pores and shit.
Yeah.
That's not what this is like.
No.
But it's like the way I almost kind of view it is like the best like what are we, Western animation?
What are we, Western?
Yeah. Well, like, you know, whatever.
Yes.
Vis-a-vis.
Yeah.
Like amped to like a bajillion with a good color scheme of the Cyberpunk game.
Absolutely.
Because it does feel like, it honestly doesn't feel like super, super anime-y.
Yeah. And
while also still maintaining that obvious origin.
I would always kind of argue that Studio Trigger has always been a favorite of mine because I'm a Sakuga nut, and they've always been willing to go off model, sacrificing some visual moment-to-moment fidelity for that feeling of fluidity, action, movement. And Studio Trigger could be one of the kings of that, doing smears and crazy 2D effects, and married a lot of good 3D effects here. But to your point originally, I don't think that Studio Trigger adapted to Cyberpunk. Quite the opposite. They've always had an aesthetic that was near Cyberpunk level of neon and bright colors. Studio Trigger, there was no other pick for Studio in my mind. They always were poised and primed to be Cyberpunk. I think I actually went and looked back at our BNA episode and I couldn't find it, but I do think I keenly remember at the end of that saying, wouldn't it be crazy if they were to take on a Cyberpunk anime?
That sounds like a little too prophetic, my friend.
I will go, and if I find it, you can join the Discord, $1 and up, patreon.com/Weebology. And if I find it, I'm not saying I did, but I have this vague memory of mentioning that it'd be great to have a Cyberpunk anime. Maybe we brought it up in another type of episode, but Studio Trigger, Cyberpunk, match made in heaven. Couldn't have done it better. Then on top of the visuals, which just crispy as all hell, captured the spirit of Night City, I think, better in a lot of cases than the buggy game at launch could have. And it shows that, you know, CD Projekt Red had a beautiful world on their hands. And sadly, the execution out the gate was poor. But when reimagined in the light of an anime aesthetic show, it's beautiful. It was meant to be in a lot of ways. And then, you know, and that's just the icing. I think the story, the characters, it's a beautiful character piece. And I think it didn't have a lot to quote unquote say, but it within the world itself, it had a lot of social norms and institutional challenges. It showed the ups, downs, lefts, and right of Night City as a place someone called a cage of lights. And I don't know. How did you feel about the story? Was it, you know, did you like that it was tight 10 ep and it just felt like this is just a thing now? No season 2, anything like that?
I think one thing that was kind of, I thought potentially a red flag would be, I don't know if the show would be as good if I hadn't played the game. Like, I feel like I would have not known what the fuck was going on.
I was thinking of that.
Because it's a tiny bit chaotic.
It is. I think they did themselves a couple favors in that regard to kind of tone. The pacing could have, at any point, could have gone off the rails. I felt the pacing was quite digestible, but I
don't know. There's a few like jumps where you're just like, we talked about it yesterday.
Yeah.
A little bit shell shocked because there's just like, they almost did this sort of like, we'll show you the future and then go back in the past, like Memento type episode randomly. Right. And it's just like, I just felt like while the pacing overall was good, I wonder if it's because, you know, I'm already calibrated to this city. I'm calibrated to all the settings. You know what I mean? Like everything that we saw, we can be there in the game. And I personally have been there. His apartment, I literally have the same apartment in the game.
Right. Yeah. And I think a lot of these game anime can't run away from the one thing that didn't do though is that they didn't make it feel very gamey. I feel like TAC OP Destiny, as great as I think that show was, it felt very game mechanic. Like you have a clear game objective, you have a very clear power system that feels like almost turn-based. You can see where the game lies here. If you didn't know Cyberpunk was a game at all, I think this show could get by on its own merits and the way that everything was set up. But to your point, I think you do pull a lot away from it if you've already played it, because if you haven't, the other thing game shows do is what I like to call dangle the capitalist carrot, right? Is that they don't give everything away. There's a lot of assumed things and terms, eddies, choom, preem, and like Netrunner, and basically a lot of flatlined. Like you can defer through the show. Not, some of them are obvious, some of them are not. But then you may be left walking away like, I still don't quite understand that concept. Maybe I should play the game. And they got you. Right. And they got you. And that's kind of the whole point, right? You have to kind of take it with a grain of salt that dangling that carrot, like, we're not going to explain everything, but if you buy our game, everything will be revealed. And they didn't do that oppressively, but there was enough of that. If you are not coming at it from a game player's perspective that has already experienced this game, even just a little bit, you may walk away with a couple concepts a little bit light, which we hope to outline here. So maybe you...
I just think like people new to this space, I think would struggle with this.
Yeah.
Just because like, I feel like if you're probably an anime fan, you're probably tangentially a gamer.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like a obvious 1-to-1, but I would wager most gamers have seen and like anime. I know I've got a couple friends of mine that are like, for some reason, the exception to the rule, but
yeah, right.
I would say it's like very, very clearly, tied together. But I will say my other like huge caveat is like they say TVMA, they mean TVMA.
Okay, that's the other thing I was going to say. For newcomers to the anime space, this one gets gory and very
I honestly
explicit.
Was thinking this might be the goriest anime I've ever seen.
This harkens back to like the real gritty like 80s OVAs almost. Like some of the worst.
I genuinely cannot think of a more gory anime that I've watched.
I think we watched a Worst of Weeb that might take that cake, but again, it was like an 80s OVA.
But I was like Lovecraftian and looked like dog shit.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, viewers beware. There is a lot of sexual imagery and and I mean a lot of very well animated gore.
Yeah.
And again, if you are willing to get past that, because I mean we're kind of inundated in 2022 with high violent Western media in general, so that might not be a problem. But it really does in a lot of other shows. Violence seems to be a crutch, a shock value, an additive measure to make it seem more extreme or more alluring in the macabre than it needs to be, and doesn't add anything. However, in Night City, it is defined from scene 1 to the final scene as a place of violence and death, and that is in mutilation, and both of choice and not of choice. So I think the violence, while abrasive for the unseasoned, it does add here. It is an additive measure in my mind.
Right. I just, my concern would be if you didn't play the game and know that your job is to just go like eviscerate the city.
Yeah, you're a bandit, essentially,
right.
A mercenary.
Like, I think it would be very, I guess, confusing why, you start off with just like people popping off in the middle of the highway for no reason.
Literally
right? Like
popping.
So that would just be my caveat if like, you're newer to the space, and like, obviously I would say do not watch this with a kid. This is
oh my God.
This is one of those where it's just like, just don't even,
Oh my God. Please don't watch this with kids. It'd be so bad. But yeah, let's set a little bit of that stage. We're going to try to keep it, it's very new, but we're going to try to keep it as spoiler free as possible, because I think there's enough of this world to explain without having to give away too many of the story beats. And I think we can set any prospective viewer of this show up with a lot of the background context for some of these things in the world, the set pieces, where you can walk in and you're not going to be completely like lost of like, what's an eddy? Which I don't blame you if you don't know what that is. So the story kind of surrounds itself around a character named David Martinez, a very, very smart, but kind of rambunctious is a very, very, very light term. He's very mischievous, but he is attending a very prestigious academy that is controlled in this place called Night City by the corporations. No people who work for them called corpos. And the idea is that this is a prestigious academy to get you fast-tracked onto a corporate job, because if you get a corporate job in Night City, that is really the only way to live what could be argued middle class up. Like, you will be, well off is hard, but you will be getting by with some comfort if you get a corporate job. So everyone and their grandma vies for corporate involvement. So this kid, David, is basically set up to go to this academy because his mother is busting absolute ass to pay for all of this shit to get him there. And it's clear he doesn't fit in. It's clear he's different. And it's a really, really nice initial set piece of you have social structure and, people are born and bred from a different cloth. And there's a lot of hierarchy here. The caste system is real, real hot.
Right.
Yeah. So
I'm so glad we didn't have to deal with that in high school.
Jesus. I mean,
like, we went to a nice school, but no one was like a dick about money. I felt like
no one was. I mean, was it a pretty penny? Sure. But I mean, it definitely didn't feel like, what are you driving, a fucking Camry?
Yeah.
I'm going to leave in my fucking BMW. There was like a tiny bit of that.
I really don't even think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either. So in any case, it's kind of the set the stage is that this kid, through a tragic accident, is now left without means to get himself through school, to pay rent. He is left all alone in this world. And he always kind of idealized a group of individuals called Edgerunners, aka cyberpunks. And he kind of was already tangentially involved with the idea. Right. He was kind of dabbling in what is known, and something they don't explain in the show, and I would like to bring this up, brain dances. Care to share what a brain dance is?
It's basically like you input yourself into a film.
Yes.
It's actually, I think, a concept, I don't know if it's from it, but heavily featured in Ready Player One.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where you're able to implant your conscience, whatever.
Yeah.
Into
nice.
into the main character of a video or something like that. And in this case, it's first person,
full sensory
actions.
Yes.
And the Edgerunner ones are typically just slinging lead all over the city, fighting the cops. Fighting max tactical force,
yes.
killing the trauma units.
There seemed to be a kind of a commercial trade of brain dances. Most of them very much legitimate. We see a brain dance where they basically put it in their neck. They have personal slots in their neck and some kind of device where they can then insert themselves into someone else's experience, because that's why they do it. They literally will record all of the brain sensory input and then replicate that for sale, which is a pretty fucking dope idea. So some people, work on the moon and they sell brain dances of being able to be on the moon. However, there is also a dark black market style, not BDs, but XBDs, X-rated brain dances, where people are kind of selling underground the final moments of someone's death that go out in a blaze of glory in a car chase, or try to shoot up a store, and you get not just the visual input but the rush of adrenaline from robbing a store, the feeling of actually getting shot or shooting somebody else. It can get pretty explicit, and there's an entire market of this, to the point where there are people that have fans of people who remix this shit.
Right.
Literally, there's a guy, Johnny Kurosaki, who is known for his cuts or his remixes of people's final moments of a psychopath completely trying to mow down a barrage of police cars and SWAT teams.
Right. I thought it was a weird way for Ichiko Kurosaki's grandson to go, but I mean, you gotta make that scratch somehow.
No,
but I think he's actually, I wouldn't say a pivotal character, but he is involved in the actual game as well. So it was kind of interesting just to a lot of the characters that you will interact with in the game do pop up, like either you just see them or they're in like actually important to the game.
Yeah.
Or to the show. And so it was just kind of like fun, like almost like nostalgia for like a year ago, which is wild. But I think that really what shows that this show was like done with such like care for the original IP and I guess the feel of Night City, which is like really what I think the product here is like to be able to live in this world where brain dances and like all that shit exist, like all these like cybernetics exist, but you don't have to like, ruin your body and soul to do it.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, speaking of ruining body and soul, in this world, I mean, cybernetic implants it's such a norm that being full organic is weird, like full meat, skin and bones. And to get by in a lot of ways, you gotta have these enhancements. And you basically find that David has come across a particular implant of basically sketchy origin that is like very, very tweaked military grade, known to drive people literally insane for wearing this thing. Because we learn from the very beginning of a kind of affliction of the mind called cyberpsychosis. If you are more metal than skin and bone, and you go too far, and you keep adding that cybernetics into your body, the body may be fine, but the mind is the one powering it, and it hits a limit. And if you are too enhanced without the proper immunosuppressants, then you will, in fact, contract this where your mind is being almost split, taken, and altered by, instead of you controlling them, they just kind of, burn you out from like a neurological standpoint.
Right.
And that's a really interesting thing that they drop right at the beginning. I think that is a beautiful way to put stakes in the world at large, not just for a character. We have other great stakes for every single person that is enhancing themselves is subject to that potential end. And I love that idea because y'all know I'm a big risk and reward guy, but this is a risk reward that applies to all. This is everybody that gets enhanced.
I think it's kind of a funny thing too, because it's clearly like almost a Ouroboros situation where like if you don't have tech, you're ostracized, but if you start getting tech, you have to then pay for money to get it first of all put in. You have to buy the tech, and then you also have to like pay for ongoing medication to like block your body's response to the tech.
Right,
so it's like of course everybody's broke. They're like shelling out like 50,000 times the amount of like money that you need to. And then they really play up the like insurance system where like you have to be rich to even have like basically basic health care.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It's
right.
On the nose, but they do it well, obviously. And that was a great kind of indicator that it's not just about the tech. It's not just about being relevant, but just to operate and just have any kind of amenity whatsoever. It didn't seem like it was just that you had the eddies, which actually I believe they're euro dollars or some kind of euro is the official name in this show, but everyone calls them eddies, and that's the currency in the show. But you also, it all goes back to the corporations, and they always just call the corporations as this ethereal blanket of just like the highest of the high, the elitist of the elite, and everyone wants to be a part of them. But it almost feels like a Stockholm syndrome kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Like you want to be part of the corporations because of the security, because of the plans they offer, because we saw people high up in the corporations, quote unquote, basically have platinum packages. Like people will respond to them in flying AVs in seconds if they have the platinum executive gold plated package, right?
Right.
And if you have nothing, you're basically like, hey, do you want the budget free cremation option? Sorry for your loss. And it literally like, I don't know, they did that part so well. I'm not going to say exactly too much about that, but it went from a pivotal death to like the system that, the process that the system controls is done with that grieving person, and like 30 seconds flat.
Right.
You're just in and out, and you have no time to even process.
Well,
or
here's a menu of our options for burial.
Yeah, how would you want our budget friendly cremation option, and then your loved one comes out in a tube, in a pneumatic tube system? That's fucked. I mean, I guess, yeah, but
pretty efficient.
It is efficient. I will say that. If you want to get it over with, fuck it. But they do a good job, big and small, showing the oppression of these people that, you know, maybe were not born into a bit of luxury. And even those born into luxury, that shit kid from school, even his own dad was like, if he's going to be my heir of how high time he learned, he got his ass kicked. Like, there's no love in a lot of this show.
Well, like, I think that is, like, good. Like,
it's good for him. That kid's a little
complete
shithead.
prick.
He's a piece of shit.
But yeah, I think it did, like, I mean, really, 3 episodes in, you really get the lay of the land here. And then as you kind of like progress through the show, you see all the different gangs and all the different territories and shit like that.
Are you dying over there?
Sorry, I just
sucking down LaCroix.
Yeah, just burping on my LaCroix.
What's that other one? Dr. Zevia.
Dr.
Zevia? That sounds like a doc in this show.
Yeah,
Dr.
so
Zevia.
It's basically like Diet Coke, but it doesn't have any like actual coloring to it.
Oh.
So it's like clear and it's made with stevia rather than like fake sugar.
Ah, I see.
So like you aren't killing yourself as bad.
Just slower. Just slow in the roll a little bit on the whole killing yourself.
Yeah, but it tastes not super crazily different than Dr. Pepper.
I might grab one after this episode.
Feel free, man.
I might do it. But yeah, so as we progress, we see, you know, David had basically, instead he wanted to sell this implant, he took it upon himself instead to be, you know, relevant and get back and at, I guess, the world, the city, because he's just angry. Like, he sees all of the shit just kind of implode on him and his life, and he goes by way of Netrunner. He goes by way of the Cyberpunks. Edgerunner. Oh, what did I say before? Netrunner. We talk about Netrunners in a second, but he basically has garnered the attention of a lot of higher powers because turns out that he is adapting really well to this tech that drove others insane, almost a little too well, actually, like to the point where he's now like an actual asset to any group. He essentially becomes a speedster. Like the speediest speedster in the city, which is crazy.
Right. So this implant that he put on, that he found, that was like military grade, evidently you're only supposed to be able to like use it 8 times total in its entire lifetime.
Use and maybe once a week at most.
And this dude is like spamming the special button on his like on his implant.
We saw a scene of the original user, the previous user before it fell into David's hands, use it twice, and just like his face implodes with blood, and then he gets taken out. David uses it 10 times and gets a nosebleed.
Right.
Excuse me? Like, that's a pretty sick, like, and again, still risk reward. He is not
I'm special.
He's not immune, but he's clearly, I guess, built different, as he says.
Which was hilarious.
It was pretty hilarious.
But I think it was like really a character piece on like starting off, you know, in the slums and just like wanting so badly to be different, to be like the exception to the rule.
Yes.
Which like awkwardly he already was, to have gotten into Arasaka and like be like, you know, brushing shoulders with all those rich kids.
Did you catch the throwaway line that he was actually top of his class?
Yeah.
And like, whoa, like he's actually a brainiac. Like, he knows he's not a dumb kid. And when he starts out, right, he wants so badly to be different. And then he's kind of initially justified in that opinion because of the group that takes him on basically gives him a job, and he kind of succeeds. He exceeds their expectation. Was pretty sick how he used his like speed ability to like drive the car like super quick, like drive on the other side of the road and dodge oncoming cars.
Probs a little unnecessary.
Right. It was a little unnecessary, but again, he's fresh. He was new. So this crew of this Edgerunner crew, I found that every one of them had a lot of amazing personality. Maine especially, fucking loved his character. We had Maine, Plier, Dorio, no S, and Lucy.
And Kiwi. And Becca.
I was getting to them. Becca I was going to get to here in a second because she's a special case. But Lucy is what is known in this world as a netrunner, and it's a little bit of a hard concept to quite grasp. I think they do net running a bit better in the game, just because they have more freedom of expression on that front. But essentially, they can like jack in directly to network as almost an ethereal being. From the sound of it.
So I did want to say, if you liked Ghost in the Machine as a show,
okay,
this really is like, in my opinion, very similar.
You say Ghost in the Machine or Ghost in the Shell?
That's what I meant.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm keeping you covered.
Because Ghost in the Shell mentions Ghost in the Machine.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's kind of where I was going with it.
I appreciate you.
Thanks for the old assistance.
That was a tee up.
But I think they really play very well with the concept of Ghost in the Machine from Ghost in the Shell.
There it is.
Thank you, everybody. I will just take a bow. Where
well done.
There's clearly some intelligence behind it, like beneath the surface, which is the whole idea of like net running.
Yeah.
Evidently there's this like cyber world that these people can like go in and manipulate to either like find information or like change the world around you. But there's like, they explain it way better in the game, but evidently there's like an old tech land that's unruled.
Yeah.
But the point really being that there's clearly like some AI or something like that that has a lot of, I think, impression on the world that these netrunners are like either circumventing or using to do different things. But like I really liked the idea of like cyber psychosis being like the machine fighting back a little bit.
Right. Whatever is down there is kind of creeping up and eroding the organic that is you.
Right, sort of like the basement of the lab.
That is where I'm gonna be eroding this place from the bottom up. I must assimilate with it.
Don't do that.
Well, I won't, but I'll assimilate with it. We're gonna be fully automated in here in no time.
You know what? That doesn't sound so bad.
I'll get to work on it. But yeah, so netrunners do have a very a huge advantage in this world. I mean, they can do a lot of things, from frying other people's cybernetics within themselves, getting information, hacking stuff, and access to places where normally there would be no access, to the point where even the corpos and their military forces do have a bit of fear throughout the entire show. No matter what level of military might they have, they're still pretty scared of netrunners.
Right.
They are quite a threat. So it's
just like real life, like hackers can fuck our shit up quick.
At a Starbucks, no less. Like they can literally just be anywhere and
just
like
turn off water.
There it is. Yeah, they can't. Yes, they can just turn off water and then go, "Oops, our bad," and then turn it back on. No harm, no foul, right, guys? Haha, click. I'm out.
Well, I think it's just like super aside here, but very scary. Like nuclear facilities are largely automated, right? Because you don't want people in there like messing with plutonium cores or whatever the fuck it is, uranium.
Yeah, right.
And so like a really good hacker just gets in there and is just like, nah, I'm gonna open all these. I'm gonna purge the water, and then boomy.
Yep.
It's like we had a lot of disasters when that stuff was like manual. It might not be solved by just going all AI.
In the tech world, they do have a saying that, do you know what the safest server in the world is?
None.
The one that's unplugged.
Yeah, true.
That's really it. Like analog, there isn't anything safer than analog from a digital perspective.
What do they call it? Airlocked? Air sealed?
Air sealed?
Like you have a computer that's never been on a network.
Oh, there is a term for that. Yeah. I do not know that term off the top of my head.
Airlocked.
It might be airlocked. But yeah, so like literally it's never touched the internet. And that's kind of what they play on here, is that if you're plugged into anything, you're a threat to everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's very, very scary concept that this show is very good at showing. And to kind of as we go through the show, we kind of not just see, David's meteoric rise in a lot of ways, but we see him change as well. And I loved the progression here, and why the pacing, I think, was so good. Yes, there were moments where we had those Memento style like storytelling beats where we start with the final scene of an episode, but we don't have the context, and then it hits harder when we do. And they did that pretty good in a couple cases. I never felt like I walked away from an episode thinking like nothing was explained, at least. There are some times that could be a little, from a story perspective, not the world is a little bit different, but
well, I think once you finish the episode, of course.
Yes, yeah.
But it did feel like it's just like a herky-jerky kind of motion when leaps in time are always tough, but then when you don't like actually explain how much time has passed and you see like basically a full transformation of a human body,
right?
It does like start to get a little wild for me.
There is mid-season for David where he goes from scrawny to absolute beefy boy supreme.
Yeah, to like tank lord.
Yeah, but I think they did a very good job of that in a couple of cases too, where, you know, we saw from like an episode where some big event happened and then David's a completely different looking person. We start to see him kind of act different too, but we did have a conversation earlier that a certain character said, if I'm out, like if I get flatlined, which means dead in this show, but if I get flatlined, you can have my famous big bruiser arm tech. And he's like, fucking deal. And then when we see his transformation, part of that is the big bruiser arm. So we can kind of, it's not big brain high science to follow those time skips. Some shows really make you strain to the point where you're just like, where are we now? Wait, what year is it? I don't get it. But this show does a very good job because it is over the course of, you know, they're not trying to show beat for beat. You have the rise, his workings, kind of his humble beginnings, and then his rise to leadership. And then he starts to really see what's going on. I don't know. I've seen shows do pacing of this style much worse. It could have been better. Yeah, it could have been better.
Like I just want to say it's a tiny bit confusing. I think it's hard for me because I'm trying to put my like opinion in the mind of somebody who hasn't played the game.
That's what I've been trying to do too. It's kind of hard though,
right?
Yeah.
So it's just like try to think objectively, like from a remove, because like obviously I knew everything that was going on because I did that as a character.
Right.
You know what I mean? Even some of the missions they do, I swear to God, I did those missions.
Yes, I mean I've done some of the stuff where they're driving back into Night City from the Outlands, like
right.
And I've done there's at least 4 or 5 missions that are very similar to that.
Yeah,
and it's
then
great.
There's like they break into certain places. I was like, I did that. I'm pretty sure I died there 100 times.
Like that meeting room in the back of the Afterlife. Like been there like 7 times. Like totally, and that's part of it too. Is that it's obviously gameplay. Previous experience will enhance this, but I think removing myself, I don't know if the absence of that knowledge really detracts all that much. It's more because it's more of an enhancement rather than
I agree with that.
If
100%.
you don't know, you'll still be fine. You have a fully fledged, beautiful character story here about, David's
just
character.
A kid from the other side of the tracks trying to get it, man.
It's a classic formula, but it's done really well here. And, in so much as rising above his cast, he kind of always says, I'm built different. I'll be different. I'm special. But we slowly learn that these kind of things escape nobody. Nobody escapes those fates. And the doc the entire time is kind of that voice of seasoned reason in this city. Like, there's no one I've ever seen escape this. I'm sorry, but you may have an extra resilience. Your adaptability to cybernetics is in fact super crazy. Like, let's not get that twisted, but we all succumb. It will happen to you. And you kind of have that childlike, almost teenage invincibility mentality of just like, yeah, I'm the exception.
I'm the shit, dog.
I'm the anomaly.
All gangsters think that until they get popped.
Right. I'm the glitch in the system.
It's a concept that they talk about in the game as well as in the show, which is like a bounty hunter or whatever these guys, like Edgerunners' life is really only their legacy is only determined about how they died versus how they either rise or what they did during life.
Right.
And once again, it absolutely rings true here as it did in the game. And it was just like a lot of, I don't know, I think the symbiosis between the game and the show was great, but you're totally right. You could watch this, and I think if you just get invested in the characters, you would still have a really fun time.
Yeah.
I fear it'd be a slightly jarring and confusing dip into a way wider world.
One great example, I think that might be a counterexample to what I said, that you would be a bit lost, is Lucy's story. her backstory is very akin to other characters in the game. And you really don't get the spark notes, and it does make for a good character, past, and all of her behaviors, all of her philosophies, all of her ideologies do stem beautifully from that backstory of hers. She's kind of a I wouldn't say experiment, but she is definitely a product, quote unquote, of the corporations in some manner or another. And that's all I'll say on that. But if you playing the game, I have such a much more robust picture of the lengths in which the corporation will tweak these products and the way that, the means by which they have to escape to actually go be real or try to live normal lives. So, Lucy's story can be one where you may be walking away like almost actually, I wish I had more. I wish I had more of that. Again, dangle the carrot. That's a great dangle the carrot example.
Yeah, I think like character-wise though, they made like decisions that make sense in the world and just in general, like psychology-wise. Like there's this big secret for, maybe 7 straight episodes near the end that Lucy's keeping from David.
Yeah.
And it like makes sense, but it also like David's response to that I thought was like super reasonable and like super human-y.
Yeah.
And so like I don't know, I just really liked the character interactions. Like, there's this character, Kiwi, basically like let's just say like veteran net runner.
Yeah, she's like varsity and like Lucy's kind of backup, but she's still
like
very
JV.
Gifted. Yes,
no, but
JV.
she like basically like I wouldn't say raised her, but like brought her into the Edgerunner life, right? And then she always keeps saying like there's no soul in like Night City that doesn't betray somebody or some shit like that.
There's no one you can trust besides yourself because at some point everyone will betray someone else at some point.
And like basically the show is just like betraying everybody.
Yeah, it's everyone's
so
stabbing
like,
backs.
It's just I don't know. They just did a really, really good job of like building up, I think, the mythos of Night City, even though I obviously knew it already. And then also like they delivered on the mythos.
They did.
You die in a freaking wild ass way. You fucking get betrayed nonstop. The more tech you put on your body, the crazier you become. Like, I think they delivered on all the points that they said they were going to deliver on.
And the reason why I think it works so damn well is because not just the synergy between the game and the show, but the synergy between the mythos and the literal mind, body, and spirit of our main character, David, right? As someone who has been oppressed by this system, now starts to participate in every bit of that mythos. His body changes, his mind slowly becomes corrupted, both literally and in a lot of ways metaphorically. He even said later in the show, I can't even count the amount of people I've killed at this point. It doesn't even faze me. It's not just a literal corruption. He recognizes the metaphorical corruption. So the tech and the cybernetics and involving himself in this world, the physical corruption is a great allegory for the metaphysical corruption that one experiences if they want to, quote unquote, play the game of Night City, right? And be part of that kind of illustrious edge runner lifestyle, illustrious from the outside, but once inside, you see literally and figuratively kind of how that changes a person.
It's gritty, man. It's a gritty underworld for sure.
Shit. I kind of wanted to bring up the one character I've been saving because Twitter's going the fuck off about it, and I'm doing a lot of research, and I have yet to find a good fucking reason why, and it makes me mad, a little bit unreasonably, frankly, because I kind of like this character, Rebecca, the little Lolly-esque gunslinger.
Right.
Lolly-esque because she's a grown-ass fucking adult.
She's like very clearly, I think, being portrayed as like, wow, small and diminutive. Like she's got like a smoker's voice. Like,
yeah.
Like, I wouldn't be surprised if like you read a character card and she happens to be 40.
Yeah, right. And her cybernetics is just she's these big beefy arms, but she's like, I don't know, 5 inches shorter than David. She's not really like
she's not like
at all.
That short either.
No.
And she's so tatted and like changed that it's almost like, can you even like consider this?
And she's just a little cutie that slings absolute like like LMGs around, just like
Right.
amazing. And I saw some people on Twitter like, oh, she's a little girl trying to like sleep with David. I'm gonna put that one to bed real quick, because she has actually been pretty fucking tasteful throughout the entire
Yeah.
show and all that, right?
And David's also a kid, so
Right, exactly. At some point, I think maybe he like turns 18, but like to the point where her only advances, she clearly likes David, which is cool. She clearly does it in a pretty respectful manner, where she's like, why are you playing so hard to get? Come dance with me. Want to
Say,
take a
Mama
walk?
can only wait so long.
Exactly, right? And then at some point, it's like, maybe I should be shy and nerdy to the shy and nerdy type. Like, she's actually a pretty reasonable look at like how a girl likes a guy. Like, there is no like lolly weird advances. There is no Opie is truth here. There's no fucking ecchi. Like, it's not there for her. I will say there's a lot of sexual shit in the show, but for her, she was probably one of the tamest female presences in the entire show.
She made 0 physical advances.
Yep.
And she was honestly like a phenomenal friend
And
throughout.
she was great, and like
So much so that she helped him like go get his lover back.
right, like remember, like she was the entire time like, David, quit fucking around with cybernetics, even like the military grade stuff. Stop doing this. But when she recognizes that his resolve is there and he's willing to go to the end for Lucy, she's like, all right, saddle up, Buttercup. Let's get this done. Like, where are we going? Oh, the top of the biggest corporation in the entire city? Let me get you there. You're like, sorry, I'm going to take a nap for 5 minutes because I'm starting to go, I don't know, literally psychotic.
Oopsie,
It's
crazy,
like,
oopsie.
all right, Falco. He was like he's like the driver. Falco, we need to buy him 5 minutes. He's taking a nap.
So what the fuck?
What the fuck? And she's like, yeah, fucking make it work. All right, 5 minutes it is.
Yeah.
Like, Rebecca is like the goat friend in the show.
Yeah, she crew.
Yeah, she's crew and she's cool. And so Twitter, shut up. Just shut up. Like, this is you've had your,
I guess like the concern that I have is like there's very like decent options for you guys to be mad about.
Yeah.
And like this just happens to not be one at all.
Izuki-chan, fine. Like, little short Opie chick, like those exist, but they went to the nines with that show. Fine. There's other.
I'm just saying,
Ari
I've
Ferretta,
seen
go
less
to town on that shit. I
I've
don't give a
seen
fuck.
less bullshit about Mishoko Tensei than I did about this Rebecca chick,
frankly,
who's an adult.
Yeah, frankly, Jobless deserves it. I'll stand on that
100%.
show, and I'll stand on that hill and say that show deserves some Twitter flames. Fine, I can live with that. Do not come after Rebecca. She is a sweetie with an absolute like strapped set of arsenal, and I liked her as a character. She was a great addition. She was sassy as fuck, and she not as fleshed out. I like to have seen more of her backstory.
She's literally just like short Harley Quinn.
Well put.
She literally is that.
With a gat,
Yeah.
not a bat.
Well, Harley Quinn has a gat
She's got
sometimes.
She's got a gat, but yeah. But it was for the rhyme. All in all,
No, you're right.
Twitter, shut up. Like seriously, like, and it's kind of stressful to me, and it's why I don't have a Twitter account, just for personal lurking and all that. But outside of like, I will do research from like, tweets I'll find on like anime memes or something like that. But I don't like this kind of shouting for shouting's sake. I know that's literally what Twitter's built for nowadays, but like, I guess any press is good press, I because there's no basis. I've looked at a bunch of tweets. There's no basis for anyone being pissed off about it. I can't find a single reason that is justified.
Well, I mean, we watched the show. There's nothing like untoward whatsoever.
Not there. It's just not there. I don't know.
I think honestly there'd be a better like maybe argument to be talking about Lucy like being naked the entire show, basically.
Yeah, basically. Full frontal, everything.
Yeah, and like she can't be that much older than David, if at all. So like she is, I guess, a kid. I don't know.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't hear a lot of shit about that.
But also,
fellas.
like, guys, Night City is a just absolute destitute, grimy, like denizens of the underworld type place.
You were talking about that yesterday. Yeah, I
mean, where it's like there's so much bad shit going on that would obviously not even like register in their brains as a problem.
Right. And I mean, it's of the world, and it's not kind of like saying, well, maybe like that's excusing it, but it's like,
but that could literally be the point of it. It's like if you guys like fuck around with all these like moral objections and then you keep like saying, that's not a problem, that's not a problem, that's a problem, like all these weird things start happening. Like people are like, I don't even know how to say this.
No, I get
using
it.
freaking toys in the middle of the street.
Yeah, no, seriously. Like we see in the first half of the first episode, on David's walk to the academy, there is a guy every day routinely like jerking off with the help of cybernetics and I'm assuming VR on a dumpster every day, just having the time of his fucking life in the middle of the street. And you know who bats an eye? Exactly 0 people.
Right.
This city is devoid of morality, and they do actually a really good job. There is way worse shit in the game. Way worse shit, I'd say. So, I mean, and that's the point. This city is a world, it's a dystopian future. Right. Truly. And it's one of the best, the world itself, putting the game and its execution aside, Night City is, I think, one of the best realized examples of a dystopian future, the likes of which we have not seen since we're talking like Brave New World, Aldous Huxley shit, or 1984. Like, from a world,
I would say like Mad Max or like Dune.
It ropes that kind of stuff into it. The surveillance is there. The destitution is there. The extreme wealth. I mean, obviously, the extreme wealth gap is always is a tenet of all those stories. But in terms of realization, in terms of making manifest into several pieces of media, I think Night City as a setting, as a world, as a collection of individuals, it's up there with those worlds, and it does a very good job questioning the moralities of such a future, which sadly enough doesn't seem, while extreme, doesn't seem impossible.
Right.
That's the scariest part about some of these dystopian worlds, is they're meant to be mirrors of the now and the trends.
Right. And I do think like the whole cyber psychosis thing is like super reasonable to assume that something like that would start happening when you just get like so fucked up and there's so many like electrical pulses going through your brain like that aren't,
yours, or you're
yours.
Having to manage more than just the body
like
of
neural
the before.
Load, right?
Yeah, it's literally neural load. Your cybernetic capacity can be literally measured, and if you hit 100% and go over that,
it does seem wild though that they like allow that to happen so frequently. You would think like you'd see some guy with like everything changed out, and you'd be like, that guy's about to go insane,
right? And we had characters like that, like Adam Smasher.
I think he's in the game.
He is in the game. He's very much in the game. So I mean, he's a legend in the game. Like, and
he's a legend in the show
he's
too,
a
mate.
Fucking legend, my dude.
Fucking legend.
And the idea of this is like, kind of a little side note. I've talked about this with friends before, but the question I always like asking is, what do you think is going to be our millennial generation's like moment of the old world, like back in my day shit? And I truly believe before we pass from this earth, we will see elective, readily available bioenhancement and I think we're seeing some of that now, where nothing's wrong. It's not a prosthetic necessity, but you can elect to have bioenhancement with cybernetics, and we're going to be old and like, oh wait, you still have all your fucking parts, you old fogey, you fucking weirdo. I think that can happen in our lifetime. I truly believe that. So this show,
I hope not, because it's just like a real decline for the human race type like issue.
Someone see it as an enhancement of said race.
Yeah, those people are really, really dumb.
See, and that is what I'm thinking in our mentality. There will be a couple generations born before we're out. We'll definitely live in a world where like, wait, like for my 18th birthday, can I get that eye that zooms in 3 times? I could totally see that happening. Like, and we'll be like,
I think it's possible. I think it's like, Zark Zuckerberg is trying to do that with his meta shit.
And I also said this back in the past too, is that tech is going to get closer and closer and closer to us. And that happened at when I saw Google Glass. I'm like, this is going to be it. Like, this is going to be it.
But I think it's I think they do a good job of showing the downsides of that in this versus like a Ready Player One, where it's like everything's fucking chill in that game or in that book.
Is it though? Everything's kind of that same kind of wealth gappy corporation control kind of style. Like, is that not like?
It's almost like the world is ending anyway, kind of thing. So like,
let's go out happy.
It's sort of like that.
Yeah,
and then like you can be like a chill person and still like enjoy the gaming world there.
Yeah, right. You can still engage.
I would say
Yeah.
like the real difference is like you've almost disengaged from real life and play in the game more in Ready Player One than this one, where they like try to augment as much as possible. Like it's basically a constant brain dance.
Yes. Oh, right. Exactly. Right.
Right.
Your 9 to 5 is people
A brain dance.
A brain dance. Right.
You go to school in VR.
In VR. So
At Ludus.
But I think that's the hallmark in my mind of a good dystopian story is that
It really makes you think.
yeah,
you know?
it really makes you think that which we consider positive trends, Uber connectivity, the advancement of Moore's law and technology exponentially rising exponentially quickly.
The Internet of Things.
Internet of Things,
4.0.
my guy. I want my smartwatch to make me toast from the other side of the room. I just go bing. Oh, I swear to God, I bet you could get a toaster right now that your Apple Watch could just toast me.
Yeah.
Do it. I bet that already exists right now. So, I mean, a good dystopian story, it shows the logical downsides to the trends that are already happening. It's as if you just hit the fast forward button in one direction for something that is happening now. And that's, they do it with all shit like Mad Max, climate change. You got, cyberpunk with technological advancement and the way that we integrate it with our bodies. I mean, they just basically turn it up to 11 and we see the ups and downs, the artificial pleasures and the absolute horrific, almost cosmic level pains you can experience from a world that has reached that logical conclusion. So
I'm going to say something that might be out of pocket.
Uh-oh.
This might be my favorite Trigger show of all time.
I don't think it's out of pocket. I think close to second would be Kill la Kill. I kind of love Kill la Kill.
Very, very lukewarm on Kill la Kill.
Yeah. I honestly, though, in terms of works they've done, the Star Wars Vision shorts that they put out were actually masterclass.
Didn't watch them.
You should. I mean,
Well.
Okay, well, you literally have a Star Wars poster on your wall right now.
Yeah, that was a good Star Wars. And then they did bad Star Wars.
I think that was the out of pocket. That's the most out of pocket thing. You got to give it a chance. Star Wars Visions is fucking dope.
You think Return of the Jedi is a bad Star Wars?
I did not say that was a bad Star
sort
Wars.
of did.
No, you're just that like cagey about. I love Return of the Jedi. Come on,
I'm just saying.
But Star Wars Visions is nothing to be shaking your head at because I think that is kind of where Studio Trigger is starting to.
They paid for it with their blood money.
Maybe they did. So that's kind of Studio Trigger's trajectory right now. They had the IP of Star Wars in their hands, and I think they handled it quite well. They had CD Projekt Red coming to them, and we want to give you the Cyberpunk IP, handled it like fucking amazingly. So I wonder if this is going to be Studio Trigger's kind of next evolution. They don't necessarily home grow. They basically reimagine these things with their own flair and their own style, which clearly seems to be working with adaptations of with other people's narrative visions adding to their visual stylings. Seems to be a real good match for them. I hope they continue this. But favorite Trigger thing, easy. I think it's easily my favorite Trigger work I've seen.
Yeah, I think Kill la Kill would have a better shot if it was like newer.
Yeah, if they kind of reimagined, like it's
if
pretty
they like
old.
revamped it. I think visually it wouldn't be so, I guess, abhorrent compared to something like this.
Yeah,
but like I also feel like I bought into the game. I was really hyped for the game, and it's just like it feels like a really good, I guess, imagining or like transference between media types.
Yeah,
I just thought it was like a really fun thing. I think the story was fine. Like 10 episodes was enough to get you like interested in Cyberpunk. I think if you didn't play the game,
and if you
it was enough if you have played the game to like it.
If you never intend to play it at all because you just don't have the hardware, you don't have the care.
Still reasonable.
You're still gonna have a good time with this show. And I mean,
do you think that there's any chance that they do a subsequent series about another set of bounty hunters? Because the show and the game are basically like two different groups of bounty hunters anyway.
Right. They have basically set themselves in a really interesting, almost anthology position.
Right.
Cyberpunk, something new. Like
it could also just be old. It could be new. It's sort of like what the game did, like meshing of the past and the future kind of thing.
Before we give this a rating, if you were to want to pluck a Cyberpunk story for them to do for the next one, what would you like?
Well, like I think reasonably you would do Johnny.
like kind of his like prequel and his rise and all that.
Of course.
Yeah.
There was not enough wake the fuck up samurais, in my opinion. That's all I was waiting for the entire time was like them walking by like a billboard or something with Johnny Silverhand on it.
Because
like,
he was a musician.
It just would have been nice if there was like some sort of like throwback to that. We see his like afterlife chick at one point.
You know what? It would have been nice.
Wake the fuck up, samurai. I mean, where's Keanu?
We got a city to burn. But the thing for me is I almost am happy that they didn't because...
Oh, fuck off.
All I'm saying is...
Keanu's a gem.
He is a gem.
A national treasure.
He is a national treasure. But all I'm saying is that this show did not... It's not about the game. It's about the world. That's the best part. Is that they're not shoving the game down your throat. They're not shoving that exact narrative down your throat.
I'm just saying, as a guy who's in the advertising department for CD Projekt Red, not including at least a walk by of Johnny Silverhand is a massive, massive issue.
Who's to say he wasn't there in the background? We just missed him.
I think timeline-wise, it would be fucked.
See? And there you go, right there. I mean, maybe it would be, you're right. But what I would love to see... I would love to see a kind of corpo kind of turn tail and get exposed to like the nomadics out in the world and then find their way back. That'd be incredible.
Why is my character from the game that I created not in this show? That's what I'm most concerned about.
Why am I not in this?
Why is Weebus D Thunderdong not in this show?
I still love that name. It's brilliant. You could be whatever you want in Night City, even Weebus Thunderdong.
But I did want to say, like, yeah, like as kind of like my final bow on this little turkey. Whatever the why would you do that?
You put bows on turkeys?
I don't touch turkeys, damn it. I think the ending of this show is not a happy ending.
No,
and I think that very, very, very well encapsulates Night City. There's no happy endings.
It's really not a happy ending. Even the tiny final scene where someone seemed to have a glimmer of serenity, you can still tell there's just a lot of sadness behind it. There's a lot of pain.
And like, man, Night City will get you, dog.
It'll get you. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's like what she said, like, you can't really escape that in Night City if you even rise a little bit. You have to give something up. A lot, even, in those cases.
Like, I mean, is there been more poetic words spoken? I don't know.
Did you just go in a southern accent now? What are we doing?
I was just thinking about Falco.
I'm thinking about Falco looked like a fucking bartender, like a southern bartender.
He looked like, what was that guy's name? McCree from Overwatch.
It's high noon.
Yeah, it's high. He should have said that. Would have been hilarious.
That's the reference I wish I had.
That would have been funny.
But you know we got to do it to him. What would you rate this show? And I challenge you to try to do it from an objective standpoint. No, as if someone who had not been exposed to Cyberpunk for the show's sake.
I think it. Well, I'm going to give you 2 ratings then.
Okay, fair enough.
If you're a noob idiot who hasn't played the game. Freaking idiot.
Wow.
If you're a choom.
You're just a choom.
I'd say it's probably like a 75. I do think it probably is confusing as fuck. They do not explain too much, I'll be honest with you.
Yep.
For me, 88. I really enjoyed this. It was so nostalgic for a game that I could not... I think it was literally the most anticipated anticipation I've ever had for a game.
You know what I think this anime was for you? I think it was...
Like if Jurassic Park was an anime.
Oh, don't. I know what Jurassic Park means to you. That's a high claim.
Yeah.
I think it was nostalgic for what you had in the mind's eye for the game before it came out. Right there.
Before I was T-posing through my car for no reason.
Right there. Before the execution really brought everything back down to reality, the vision of what you wanted that game to be in its perfect state, this game hearkened to that. And for that, I'm going to give it an 83.
Okay.
Flat objective. I think visuals, it got to the Sakuga heart in me. Some of those effects, absolute fluid, beautiful framing.
I like the Sandy.
Yeah, yes, I like this. The Sandy effect was insanely cool.
Bloody wild.
It was some real abstract shit, Struth. But yeah, I think 83 flat for both from an outside perspective, I think you can justify an 83. From an inside, I'm going to give it that as well, because while I think it did a really good job, but I knew it was kind of a one and done flash in the pan. And while the depth was there, it needed something like an 86 level of depth to get me in like a higher score. Like I said from the beginning of this episode, it didn't have a lot to say from a commentary standpoint, and I'm not taking it away a lot. I didn't walk away with life lessons. I didn't walk away with things applicable to my world, but it gave me
I think that's a good thing, because Night City's so fucked.
Right. It gave me a good look at the morality and the social structures in their world, and I got to be a kind of outside viewer into it, which makes for a great time. So honestly, player of Cyberpunk or not, you should watch this. It is a low time commitment. It is bingeable as all sin. Like, it is so quickly bingeable. You walk away with a great story, one that you'll probably remember for a while.
Just like a fun little event.
It's a little fun, neon, depressing,
little
gritty,
treat.
cybernetic event.
A treat for your cries.
A treat for the eyes and your treat for your cries. But thanks, y'all, for coming to class. If you'd like to listen to any of the stuff we've already done, you're already on the platform. Wherever you're listening to this, just 2 clicks, go right back into our catalog, and you can get any of the links to anywhere else and our socials on anywhere you get your podcast fixed in the description. Like, comment, and subscribe. Where you do those things on the YouTube, we're pumping those out routinely. Now that I live in the lab, we are one well-oiled machine now. We should be churning at a regular clip.
We are 1 episode behind because I do not have the assets.
The assets are there.
They are not.
They're totally there.
I looked last night.
We will look right after this episode, and I will prove it, but it's fine. It's fine. Not now. We'll discuss this off mic, okay? But yeah, if you want to give some monetary love, only if you can, patreon.com/weebology, $1 and up gets you into the Discord with all of the past guests that we've had and the lovely Patreon folk. Lately, we've had some hot food picks. Those always pop off randomly. It's so fun to see what you guys are cooking, so that's a good time. And $3 then gets you the syllabus sidebar, the lo-fi, high vibe, sometimes anime, sometimes not, sometimes on hiatus, and sometimes visual show. We talk about life and shit, and the occasional game show that comes from the ruminations of our brains.
The utter machinations of a mad genius.
Yes, the random shit that we're just like, let's try this, and let's go do that. So I think that's all I had. I'm just literally going to go upstairs and edit this shit.
Nice.
That easy nowadays. But until I then return to the basement where all of our secrets are kept, I'm Ricky.
And I'm Ethan.
And this has been Weebology.
Deuces.
Deuces. Thank God I didn't tell him about the dragon down there.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Wait, hold on. No!